Hi friends, Naria here. Welcome to the next episode of Naria Lemire Nutrition. Today's episode is all about how to meet your protein goals. So let's just start with some basics and we'll go on from there. Number one, calculate your protein needs. Now it may sound easier said than done, but that would be really the first step, right? So there's a lot of different equations to calculate your protein needs. When you go on the wide world of web, make sure you go to .org or .edu. There's the basics, kind of like the starter point, maybe about zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram. I like to look at my clients' lean body mass before I fully decide how much protein I'm going to recommend for them. But again, whatever you decide to do, the calculations you do, make sure it's a .org or .edu so that way you know it's coming from an accredited source. And again, go to Google Scholar. It's a free resource. Go there, see what the research says, and base it on your current lifestyle. If you're doing weight training, if you're doing cardio, what do you need for that type of activity? And remember, planning your meals can really prevent eating out. I know sometimes it's easy to go out and grab whatever fast food, but remember, when you're eating out, they tend to add maybe extra fat, extra sodium, extra things that can have things that we want to avoid as much as possible. But of course, sometimes it's okay. It's not a big deal. But cooking at home gives you the control. So let's avoid eating out as much as possible and having more home cooked foods. When you're going out in the world to the grocery store or online grocery shopping, make sure you're choosing high protein foods. There's a lot of different protein foods, so make sure that you decide which one has a higher amount of protein. If you haven't received my free protein handout, make sure you contact me. You can definitely drop a message. If you're listening to the podcast, just send me an email, narialemire.com. I'll definitely respond and give you the freebie. But remember, again, you can go on the internet and put high protein foods, choose a .org, choose a .edu, and decide which ones you want to try. And remember, not all proteins are made the same. There's some that have extra things that we want to maybe limit, which we'll get into a sec. But number one, choose high protein food so that way meeting your protein goal for each meal can be nice and easy. When you're planning your foods, prioritize your protein. If you're deciding to prioritize your or plan your meals on the weekend, think what's going to be my protein with each meal. What's going to be my protein for breakfast? What's going to be my protein for lunch? What's going to be my protein for dinner? And yeah, if you have some snackies, prioritize the protein. Because even if you have snacks, if you want, like, let's say some Dorito chips or some hot Cheetos, Funyuns, whatever you want to do, if you pair it with the protein, the probability of that portion being massive will start to reduce because the protein is going to help with satiety. So think, what protein is going to be with my meals? If you prioritize that, you're golden. Number two, what's going to be my fiber? Number three, how am I going to hydrate? And the answer is water. When you're choosing your proteins, choose lean products. Remember, not all proteins are made the same, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. And let's compare that. So if we have a piece of red meat and chicken, do they both contain protein? They do, but which one's higher in fat? Which one has saturated fat? So although yes, you can have red meat, I typically recommend to have leaner products like chicken, chicken breast, turkey. Fatty fish is okay because that's anti-inflammatory. They have the omega-3, so you can definitely have those. Also try legumes, but they do have carbs, so just take note of that. And or tofu. There's different types of products that have high protein and they're low in fat. So definitely consider and remember and really think who wore it better. That's what I always like to remember. Yeah, protein and protein, but which one looks better? That's the one I'm going to choose most of the time. Going back to what we just talked about a few minutes ago, cooking your own meals. That's the next tip. Especially if you're getting really into your macros. Usually the beginning stages of this, I always recommend everyone to just follow their nice and easy healthy plate pattern or the My Plate, which I'm sure you've seen everywhere, even from school. But once you get deeper into this and you're like, hey, I need to have this certain amount of grams of protein per meal, start to cook your protein at home and weigh it at home. You're able to make your own portions because you're cooking it and you're weighing it. So that way, you know, like, hey, if I need 4 ounces, I'm going to weigh the 4 ounces of cooked chicken and I know I'm going to have the amount of protein I need. versus if you're going out and you're ordering some random meal, they may have too little protein or too much protein, which is fine because you can always save it for later. But cooking it at home gives you the power to control the portions, which is massive, especially if you're trying to be in a calorie deficit. The next tip is try different types of proteins. If you're over chicken, if you're over meat, try different types. Remember, there's so many vegetarian and vegan products, especially these days. Go to Trader Joe's, go to Costco, Albertsons, Vons. There's so many different products. I know I'm at the grocery store just checking out products or on my computer doing Amazon Fresh and looking at these products. But remember, just because they're vegan or vegetarian does not mean that they're technically healthier. Many times they have so many added ingredients to give the sensation and the taste of or make you feel like it has a taste of meat. Remember, many times they have so many extra ingredients to try to make up for the lack of flavor of not being a real meat product that it has extra fats, usually pro-inflammatory. They have extra sodium, extra things that we would really want to limit. Now, again, more companies are starting to try to be more mindful of these things, so they add the more healthier fats, like the avocado oil, so that's good. But just remember, just because it's vegan or vegetarian doesn't mean it's healthy. Going back to who wore it better, which we talked a few minutes ago, compare different vegetarian options or vegan. One thing that I've noticed, for example, I like to do chorizo with eggs a lot. So a lot of vegan chorizo is very high in fat. I recently found a product, Seitan, which I've done a few other videos on it, which is low in fat and it tastes pretty good. So again, compare the products, get comfortable reading the nutrition facts panel to see what the product actually contains. You can do all of these things, but last tip, if you're not tracking, it can be very difficult. It doesn't mean you have to track forever. It just means that you may have to track for some time. That time may be a few months, a few years, a few weeks. It depends on your goals. It depends on your goals. So me, for example, I don't really track because I usually tend to have the same foods to where I know what the portions are going to look like. I know about how much protein I'm going to have. I know about how many calories and so forth. But if I'm changing my goals and I want to increase or decrease my calories, I have to go back to my logging to see how much am I exactly eating right now. Then I decide, okay, if I'm at 1500 calories, maybe if I want to lose weight, then I'm going to bump it down. Or if I want to work on creating more muscle, I might bump it up a little bit. But logging is really something that helps to know what you need to change. So, friends, today we talked a little bit about how to meet your protein goals. Practice all these things that we talked about today. And just like anything, practice makes perfect. So, the more that you practice this, the more it's going to make sense, the easier it's going to get, and the smoother the process will be. This is usually not the easiest thing for anyone to do. Usually, it takes some time. It takes some time and then it gets easier. Start with one macro at a time. So, if this is really new to you, learn about what macros are. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean based on your goals, on your weights and body composition goals? And then you go on from there. Do one thing at a time. Really understand each one so that way that process can be easier. If you just go in full force, I mean, you can definitely get there eventually. It may be a little bit difficult, but take your time to really build a foundation for nutrition. So if protein is your first one, that's cool, but really take your time to learn about it.